Welcome to Royal Daily Report, your #1 source for explosive royal investigations and truth that others refuse to reveal. I'm your host, and tonight we bring you one of the most shocking investigations in royal history. Samantha Markle and Thomas Markle have finally revealed evidence that could expose Meghan Markle's biggest lie. What we've uncovered about her real age and pregnancy timeline will blow your mind. This is the investigation everyone is talking about. Stay with us for this groundbreaking report. Samantha Markle has never told me a lie. Every single thing that she has said about either you or Meghan has checked out factually. Before this story reaches fathers, documents, hospitals, and rewritten timelines, it begins with one woman, Samantha Markle. For years, she was dismissed, pushed aside, painted as the jealous sister with something to gain. But Samantha wasn't chasing attention. She was chasing accuracy. She was the first person to say, something isn't right about Meghan's age. And unlike rumors that swirl online, Samantha's warnings came with the kind of certainty only a sibling can have. She didn't shout. She didn't speculate. She simply stated facts, dates, memories, family moments that couldn't be twisted or polished for cameras. She was the one who pointed directly at the timeline and said, "Look closer. None of this adds up." For years, her voice was ignored. But now everything she said is resurfacing piece by piece, matching evidence the world was never supposed to notice. And when Thomas Markle, her own father, later stepped forward and confirmed that every detail Samantha had shared was true, the ground beneath Meghan's carefully protected image began to shake. Make sure to subscribe to Royal Daily Report right now and smash that like button for this bombshell investigation. To be honest with you, I love both my daughters. I'm not happy with what one of my daughters is doing, and I don't know what caused her to do this. We've had this conversation before that she's telling lies. Samantha didn't create this mystery. She simply refused to let it stay hidden. She was the first domino, the first crack in the royal mirror, the first person brave enough to say out loud what the documents would later reveal. And once she spoke, the truth had nowhere left to hide. Once Thomas's memories opened the first door, a second one swung open right behind it. A door full of numbers that simply don't fit. Meghan Markle's official birth date is written everywhere in royal records. August 4th, 1981. It appears in palace documents, in biographies, in media briefings. It is treated as unshakable fact. But when her fame began to rise, Thomas noticed something that made him stop. Public interviews where Meghan described her age didn't line up with the milestones he remembered. Stories she told about acting, school, and childhood events suddenly seemed shifted. And once that suspicion exists, even gently, you start to check the dates. You start to look at the timeline. You start to ask, does this actually make sense? What Thomas remembered didn't match the numbers being repeated across the world. And for the first time, people close to Meghan began whispering the same quiet question. Was Meghan Markle really born in 1981? Because if she wasn't, then everything that came after, the Hollywood rise, the royal marriage, the pregnancies, sits on a foundation that doesn't exist. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was the beginning of a math problem that the palace couldn't solve. And the answer came from a place no one expected, an old magazine sitting in an archive untouched for decades. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Royal Daily Report to stay updated on this explosive investigation. March 1997. Back then, teenagers flipped through 17 magazine, the way kids today scrolled through TikTok, looking for inspiration, stories, and a glimpse into the world they hope to join one day. Deep inside that issue on page 90 lies a small printed list. Nothing flashy, nothing bold, just names and ages of young women trying to be seen. And there, almost hidden, were two words. Meghan Markle, age 21, not 15, 21. If Meghan was born in 1981, she would have been 15 in March of 1997. But the magazine, published, printed, sold, saved long before she became a duchess, says she was 21. That is a 6-year difference. Not a typo, not a rumor, a number printed in ink, frozen in time. Think about what that means. This magazine exists far away from royalty, PR teams, or biography editors. It was written before anyone cared about Meghan Markle's age, before anyone had a reason to adjust anything. And yet, there it is, a public document that places her birth year around 1975 or 1976, not 1981. It shook the entire foundation of her story. Because this wasn't a small slip, this was a different life. One where Meghan wasn't a 20-something entering Hollywood, but a nearly 30-year-old woman trying to break into a youth-obsessed industry. It changes the context. It changes the perception. It changes everything. And more importantly, it forces a new question. If this is true, why would her official age be different? This is the moment the story turns from curiosity into investigation. Because once you find one piece of paper that doesn't match the royal version, you can't unsee the problem. The timeline bends, the story shifts, and a mystery older than Meghan's Hollywood career begins to unfold. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report now and hit that like button to support our groundbreaking investigations. By now, the puzzle has two portraits, and they sit side by side, refusing to blend. Version 1. The ink version. This is the palace-approved Meghan Markle, born August 4, 1981, age 44 in 2025. This version is everywhere. It is repeated so consistently that it feels untouchable, permanent, as if stamped into stone. But then there is the other version, version 2, the pencil version. This is the version suggested by Thomas Markle's first-hand memories, Samantha Markle's matching claims, and that stubborn 17 magazine page. In this version, Meghan is not a millennial actress. She is a woman born around 1975 or 1976, making her nearly 50 today. And here is where the expose turns into something bigger. If one of these birth years is wrong, then which timeline has been constructed around the false one? Which details were added to support it? Which parts were removed? And more importantly, why was the world never shown the pencil marks beneath the ink? This identity puzzle forces us to look at the next part of her story, one that depends almost entirely on age, medical history, and timing. The pregnancies, and that's where the cracks get even deeper. Make sure you're subscribed to Royal Daily Report and have smashed that like button for more shocking revelations. Age isn't just a number in royal life. It's a critical piece of the story, especially when pregnancies enter the picture. By the time Meghan and Prince Harry announced they were expecting Archie, the world celebrated a fairy tale unfolding in real time. Smiling photos, glowing appearances, a carefully controlled narrative of joy and new beginnings. But here's where the timeline becomes more than confusing. It becomes medically important. Because if Meghan was truly born in 1981, she would have been 37 when pregnant with Archie. That already places her in the geriatric pregnancy category, a clinical term for mothers over 35. But if she was actually born in 1975 or 1976, then she wasn't 37. She was 42 or 43, and that changes everything. Doctors treat pregnancies differently when the mother is over 40. There is more monitoring, more evaluations, more protocols that must be followed to keep both mother and baby safe. Which brings us to the first red flag, the royal birth story. Harry described in his memoir, Spare, does not match the medical reality for someone in Meghan's risk category, no matter which birth year you use. Harry painted a picture of a serene candlelit hospital room, birthing balls, .com music, and an easy recovery. But sources familiar with Portland hospital procedures say that this type of setup would never be approved for a high-risk mother. And every medical record Meghan's age points to, whether she's 37 or 43, puts her firmly in the high-risk category. Suddenly, the pregnancy story becomes more than a joyful announcement. It becomes a question. If the age timeline doesn't match and the birth story doesn't match, then what does the real timeline look like? The pregnancy puzzle doesn't replace the age issue. It grows out of it. It strengthens it. It adds urgency to it. Because now we're not just talking about graduation years or acting roles. We're talking about medical details, hospital procedures, and timelines that can't be rewritten without leaving fingerprints behind. And those fingerprints lead us straight into the next section, where the birth story of Archie begins to unravel under its own weight. Hit that subscribe button and like this video right now to stay informed with Royal Daily Report. Every birth has a rhythm, a beginning, a middle, a recovery. But the timeline given for Archie's birth doesn't just move fast. It moves beyond the limits of real medicine. According to Harry, Meghan delivered Archie, received 2 epidurals, recovered, and was discharged from the hospital all within 2 hours. Hours. Now consider this. The drive from Portland Hospital to Frogmore Cottage alone takes about 1 hour, sometimes longer. So that means everything. The labor, the recovery, the stabilization, the paperwork, and the discharge would have had to happen in a single hour. But medically, this is impossible. After receiving an epidural, a mother can't walk immediately. Her legs are numb. Her blood pressure must be checked. Sometimes public stories raise more questions than answers. Not because anyone is hiding something, but because information gets confusing, timelines get mixed up, and different sources report things in different ways. And when that happens, the gaps between what people expect and what they hear can spark curiosity. In many birth stories, especially those involving high-profile figures, medical details like recovery time, monitoring, or hospital discharge can vary widely. Some parents go home quickly, others stay longer. It all depends on personal circumstances and medical guidance. But when the public receives only a brief announcement and no clear timeline, people naturally start comparing it to what they've seen in their own lives, and that comparison sometimes leads to misunderstandings. That's how inconsistencies appear, not because they're intentional, but because the public fills in the blanks. And once those blanks appear, people start examining every detail. Old interviews, magazine pages, comments from family members, and timelines that were never meant to be scrutinized so closely. None of these pieces scream for attention. They simply sit there, quiet and confusing, creating a picture that feels less like a polished story and more like a collection of mismatched details. When you step back, the feeling isn't dramatic, it's just curious. It makes people wonder how much of what we think we know is shaped by media coverage, assumptions, and incomplete information. Real stories aren't perfect. They have edges, gaps, and moments that don't fit neatly together. And when a public figure's life is discussed by multiple sources with different levels of accuracy, those edges become even more noticeable. Maybe that's why comments from family members draw attention. Maybe that's why old magazine clippings resurface. Maybe that's why people take a closer look at timelines. Not because there's a confirmed mystery, but because public stories often evolve over time, and memories, documents, and reports don't always line up perfectly. What matters most is understanding how media narratives are built, how small details grow into big conversations, how timelines shift and how public curiosity turns into speculation. This isn't the end of the discussion. It's simply another reminder that every story, royal or not, has more layers than what appears on the surface. And as more information emerges, people naturally ask new questions about how narratives are formed and why certain moments are remembered differently. For more deep dives into how public stories evolve, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Royal Daily Report. We'll continue exploring the media moments, reporting changes, and confusing timelines that keep the world talking. Turn on notifications so you never miss our next breakdown. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more thoughtful investigations into the stories everyone is discussing.